Hello everybody, this is ManuS and welcome to another weekly metagame breakdown. We are in the second week of the new balance patch and we're getting a clearer idea of what the post balance patch metagame looks like. So we'll take another look at the top 5 most played and top 5 highest win rate decks in Master based on the stats provided by mobalytics. But before we do so, you know the drill. Hit the subscribe button down below to not miss out on future deck tags, metagame breakdowns, and so on. And before we dive right in, let me briefly introduce you to today's sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by NordVPN, one of the leading virtual private network providers out there. A virtual private network keeps your data secure and yourself anonymous while using the internet. NordVPN comes with super fast servers, allows you to unlock your favorite entertainment websites like Netflix. They provide a 30-day money-back guarantee. They also have an included cybersecurity suite, which acts as an ad blocker to boot. They don't lock any of your data, provide a 24/7 customer support, and you can use it on up to 6 simultaneous connections, so one account covers most or all of your electronic devices. And most importantly, they don't have any bandwidth limit, so you can use it non-stop without it getting throttled, which is particularly important for heavy users like us. It also won multiple awards and comes highly recommended by top technology experts. So if you're still surfing online without a VPN, now is the time to change that. Get NordVPN now, 70% off for a 3-year plan, including 1 month extra for free using the code ManuS or the personalized link in the description down below. And now on to today's content. Alright, so now that we got that out of the way, let's take a look at the decks. So, Ronnie noticeably dropped in popularity like I predicted, and I would expect it to drop even more. I rarely face it. The deck is just not very good. It's probably not even really tier 2. It's probably more of a tier 3 deck, like I said last time, and it's getting closer to sort of shifting in that slot, I think. But it's still fairly popular, but it's not doing that well anymore. Like, let me try and take a brief look. If I look at the deck's win rate, it's below 54%. It's at like 53.6%, which is obviously still above 50, but not great by any means. So it's not like horribly unplayable, but it's inferior in many ways, like I said. All right. Next we have Deep. Deep, I think, went down quite a bunch in popularity compared to before, which is not that surprising. I'm not super impressed by the deck, and the win rate also happens to be similar. It's not that great of a win rate. It's like 54.1%. It's just, the deck just has a bunch of very fundamental flaws of how clunky and weak its early game is. So if you're playing against proactive stuff, it has a really hard time catching up. This is the most popular list. There's some criticism that I already gave in the past that still holds true here, like not running 3 Jettison, but running 3 Salvage, which was really clunky. Only running 2 Abyssal Eye is questionable, especially since Terror of the Tides in comparison seems pretty unnecessary. And not having any Ruinations means you basically have no chance of ever beating any Demacia mid-range aggressive decks from some testing that I've done, if the Demacia guy is half decent and has a half decent draw, basically. So yeah, Deep slowly shifting into probably the more tier 2-ish position that I think it should inhabit in terms of its quality. Now we're getting into the better performing decks. Seems like, ironically, after the Brute Awakening nerf, that Enduring SI, or whatever you want to call it, is kind of doing better than before. It got Fury of the North from the new set, and people are finally embracing Calista broadly, and the deck overall just has a lot of power. This list is really good. I'm not sure who built it, but there's basically only one thing that I think is pretty bad, and that's Haunted Relic. I think the card's too situational and cute with Calista and stuff. The most I would run is 1 if you really want to run it, but I personally would just cut them for probably a Fury of the North and Desert Collector, especially because 2 relic, but only 2 collector makes them even worse. And every time you draw the card without like Calista, I think it's pretty weak. So with 3 Calistas, you at most want 1 maybe for the like Calista high roll, but you also have 3 caretakers for that, so you don't really need it. I think it's just kind of a poor choice. And it's issuing 2 otherwise pretty powerful cards that I feel like the curve can take given how low it is up front. But otherwise, it's really good. It's doing really well, and it is probably a tier 1 deck going forward. And it still has some inherent issues, like it's pretty weak against elusives of various kinds, for example. But otherwise, it has a lot of like inherent power, like a lot of strong cards, and it's pretty good against a lot of other stuff. But with elusives more and more on the rise, and being really good again, this deck will probably suffer from that. So we'll see how its positioning will shake out, but like just inherent quality wise, it is a tier 1 deck, I think. Next we have still Vaiheimer, not too surprising. It slightly dipped in popularity, or rather is tied in popularity with the first. They almost have the same amount of games played. Not a surprise, this is one of the format defining tier 1 decks still after the balance patch, and I don't think anyone is surprised by that or didn't see that coming. And last but not least, with close to 1,000 games more, we have Misfortune Sejuani. This is the best version, or one or close to the best version, I think. Much better than the heavy 2-region versions that we've seen from other people. This version, I think, is originally produced by God from like a month ago even, or so. It's like fairly old already. The one thing that I think I mentioned in the past that I would like to try is cut Navigator for Razorthin Hunter, since the deck has no 5-drop and has a lot of 4s, and Razor Scale or Razorthin Hunter is a bit more powerful than Navigator and has a easier time of getting a scout attack in for free. I feel like the deck is more of a tier 2 than a tier 1 deck, but I could be wrong in terms of like its overall quality. It does some powerful stuff, but it has a fair share of issues. Maybe I am underestimating it a bit. Its win rate is certainly solid, but it's much lower than, say, for example, Enduring SI or Vaiheimer, for example, despite its popularity. To be fair, popularity always impacts win rate, but that counts for Vaiheimer as well, and the win rate is much, much higher regardless. So there is a notable like 3% win rate gap between the 2 decks. And you could even argue that this deck is also potentially a bit easier to play than Vaiheimer and still has a lower win rate, despite the high popularity. So I feel like the popularity of this deck is not exactly justified, and it is inflated. It's a solid deck, but it's not like one of the best decks, I think. But maybe I'm wrong on this. Alright, so now we move on to the top 5 highest win rate decks. First, we have Elusives, which is actually like really underrepresented in terms of its win rate. I personally, for example, currently over 90 games have a win rate of 73%, a bit over 73%, and that coming off of a downswing from the last 10 games that went like 5-5 and really pulled down my win rate before my win rate was notably above 75%. Deck feels really, really good. Still would recommend playing Fury over Elixir. Haven't regretted that change. Rest is still the same. Deck is really, really good again. I think the deck is very much tier 1 again, and mostly struggles against good Vaiheimer draws that line up well against elusives, and is really good against most other decks. Burn can also be pretty rough, but isn't that popular anymore. All the mid-range stuff like Misfortune Sejuani, Enduring SI, and all that stuff is, or like Ash Sejuani, is just walk in the park more often than not. So this win rate, pretty low. I think not enough good players have embraced the deck yet again and performed accordingly, because unlike what a lot of people think, this deck takes a fair amount of skill, especially with the nerfs and lower power level and maneuvering against the limited options that the opponents have and making sure that the limited options become even more limited so you win those games. And I think playing Elixir over Fury might also have to do with the win rate potentially. Since Fury on a live blade alone can win a lot of races, both on offense and defense. And overall having more open attack and burst potential. So yeah, I expect this to only become more popular and the win rate to go back up towards the 60 that I think it belongs into. And I would argue that this Vaiheimer Dinger and maybe Enduring SI could be like the 3 best decks in the format right now. But that's just my guess currently. Next we have Burn, still doing pretty well. Close to 80% win rate, which is obvious updates. Teemo over Rearguard. And yeah, I prefer this version. 3 Transfusion, 1 Static Shock is what I would recommend. Transfusion got even better with Teemo, making it easier to get free damage in and also helping to protect Teemo, because Teemo, if they can't answer him, can win the game on his own for you. And Static Shock is just very clunky and marginal and fine as like the 40th card, but not something I would cut any of the other cards for. Then we have Vaiheimer. It's not just popular, it's also doing really well. Nothing new here. So there's the causation and correlation between win rate and popularity in this regard. Next we have another elusive deck, which I honestly, after having tried it a bunch, think is still like way worse than Kinko elusives. It wins some of the good matchups of Kinko elusives even harder, and is much worse in matchups, or like even unfavored in matchups where Kinko elusives is still favored. It is probably better against Vaiheimer Dinger on average than Kinko elusives, which is, I guess, a potential draw, but it's still pretty awkward, has some weird draws, responds really poorly to any kind of pressure and aggression, as opposed to Kinko elusives, which can deal with that fairly well. This version overall is pretty solid. Skeptical of only 2 Decimate and 2 Conspirators, but like 2 Retreats, for example. Not convinced that is correct. Especially the 3rd Decimate should probably be in the deck. But yeah. Oh, and Precious Pet. I think Precious Pet is arguably almost even better than Blade Scout as a 3-off. Since on turn 1 it's almost always better. By the time that Pet can't attack anymore, it probably got in for 1 or 2 attacks. While Blade Scout can at most get in for 1 and only if you have attack token. So that's the other number that's pretty weird to me. I'm really not a big fan of Solitary Monk, and this especially as a 3-off. The deck has so many draws that make Monk really awkward, and that's part of why the deck struggled so much against any counter pressure in a lot of cases, unless you have these really good draws. But yeah, the deck's still doing fine, and people succeeding with it, but I think it's just overall a worse Kinko elusives. So if you want to play elusives, I think you're better off with Kinko elusives. And one of the more and more popular decks is also our current winner in terms of win rate. Enduring SI, almost 62 win rate, pretty impressive. That seems a bit inflated to me, honestly. The deck is good, but I don't think it's that good. Maybe there were some metagame and preference circumstances that helped the deck do particularly well. I think its more realistic balanced win rate is a bit lower, probably around 60% or something. It's just the deck just has too many glaring weaknesses against something like those 2 elusive decks to have the by far highest win rate, especially with more popularity right now, I think. But it is a very strong deck for sure. So yeah, there you have it for now. As you can see, metagame breakdowns are getting a bit shorter again, since we kind of keep repeating the things about the same decks. Not that much is changing. Interesting to know is the ranked season will come to an end on the 23rd of June, so soon. And after that, we probably also will see some more shake-ups and stuff. So yeah, we'll see how things shape up. And there will also be another balance patch soon. And until then, let me know in the comments what you think of the current metagame, of the decks, of the versions we looked at here. And yeah, let me know how you feel about the deck techs and stuff. I noticed some of the deck techs have drawn very little interest, and I'm not entirely sure why. So let me know in the comments why those might have not been that interesting to you. Like, for example, the Twisted Fate Fizz deck tech or the Draven Vi deck tech have gotten a fraction of the views of some other deck techs, and I'm just trying to like provide you the best content possible. Also, let me know what deck techs you might want to see from me going forward, because I'll probably try to get you another deck tech over the weekend at the very least. And yeah, until then, you know the drill. Subscribe down below. Hit the like button if you enjoy the content. Leave a comment, share it with your friends, and show the sponsors some love in the description. All the sponsor-related information is in the description as usual. So that's it again for this time. I'm your host, ManuS. I thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.